Matthew's message, October 19, 2014. With loving greetings from all souls at this station, this is Matthew. For the most part, mainstream media coverage of Ebola is straightforward. But like most major world issues, it is marked by political finger-pointing, particularly regarding the few cases in Spain and the United States. Given your mobile world, the appearance of symptoms several days after onset of the disease and their similarity to symptoms of other maladies, the sickness popping up outside of the heavily stricken Western African countries was inevitable. The heartening aspect is that the medical community has been given a forum to allay fear that the disease can spread out of control. Of course, no one can report that once again the light is ensuring that the Illuminati's intention to create a pandemic and worldwide fear is a failure. The political penchant for assigning blame is hotter and heavier about ISIS, which isn't faring at all well, insofar reports to allay fear about their intentions, and justifiably so. Those forces will continue to make headway until an allied regional effort stops them, and that will come. The underlying factor, ever-increasing light, will be construed as self-serving interests of neighboring nations, and indeed pragmatism will enter the stage. As leaders who are refraining from active involvement realize that ISIS forces could carry their terror-based Islam state across whatever borders they wish, vulnerable countries will jump into the fray. We know that as those two situations run their respective courses, they are providing many souls the opportunity to work through chosen karmic lessons. Still, it is a sadness for us that some of our Earth family are treating others without a shred of mercy. Now then, we welcome your many insightful questions and comments about decade of delay, years 2007 and 2017, NESARA and how the plan for Earth's golden age came about. To show the interrelatedness of all, we shall connect the dots in prior messages and fill any gaps in that information so you can see the tapestry unfold in its entirety, so to say. The master plan for Earth's golden age was predicated upon your world's readiness for international reconciliation and cooperation by your year 2007. It's not that the cause of the delay began then, but rather that the Council had expected your society to have reached that stage of spiritual and conscious preparedness by that time. As we continue, you shall see why the expectations were logical, why they were not met, and why that year on your calendar was pivotal in the Council's timeline. Everything took place beyond your concept of time, but we shall do our best to explain it within a sequential frame of reference. The plan came about because Gaia, the soul that eons ago embodied in what now is your homeland planet, sent out a call for help. The negativity that had accumulated due to civilization's relentless bloodshedding had so diminished Earth's light that her ability to remain in orbit was severely imperiled. The two previous episodes when the planet's very life was at stake, the release of a mass negativity happened with such cataclysmic force that all life forms perished. Gaia loved them all, even the people who contributed to the negativity, and each time of departure sorrowed her deeply. This time she wanted her residents not only to survive, but physically ascend with her planetary body, which would be restored to its original pristine health and beauty so all of her life forms could flourish and live together joyously and harmoniously. Her clear vision of that Earth became manifest in the universal continuum. Accommodating Gaia's desire and her body's immediate need to start ridding itself of negativity required a massive amount of light, and God authorized powerful civilizations to provide it. The initial infusion stabilized Earth's orbit, jarred her loose from deep third densities entrenched negativity and enabled her to begin ascending. Naturally, that light and all forthcoming from those far distant sources would be available to all of her life forms, too. But how to motivate humankind to peer through the darkness that shrouded the planet so they could see the light was quite another matter. It was at that point the Council entered the picture. They accepted the task of inspiring the peoples to take charge of their personal ascension by receptivity to the incoming light so they could start generating their own, with forcefulness. This was essential for two reasons of equal importance to ascension. Light transforms bodies' carbon-based cells into the crystalline structure that can survive in vibratory levels that eventually Earth would reach. And by dissolving the veil between third-density consciousness and soul-level knowledge, the light opens hearts and minds to the spiritual enlightenment that engenders soul growth. After discussing all the intricacies, complexities and requirements involved, first and foremost that everyone's free will must be honored in accordance with Creator's edict to rulers of all the universes, the Council came up with a plan. It had to be put into a linear time frame for your understanding, and since it is your world, it could only be what you want it to be. Therefore, all aspects of the plan had to become part of the collective consciousness, that energy mass of countless thoughts, feelings, and deeds that steers activity in Earth's field of potential and determines what happens in your world. So a major consideration was how to present the plan in a format that would start people thinking about it. At that time in your history, the United States was considered to be the most globally influential of all countries, making it practical to start there, and so it did. Members of that government were inspired to form the National Economic Security and Reformation Act that is commonly known by its acronym NESARA. This legislation has been the Dark One's target of manifold lies and sabotage, which led to denial of its existence by some who heard of it and to serious misconceptions by others. If you don't know what NESARA actually encompasses, it is no less than the basis of world transformation and spiritual renewal, and its evolution through both light and dark passages. Please read previous messages that give detailed accounts. Special NESARA Edition, August 13, 2006, provides background information. A number of other messages include additional coverage. The provisions of NESARA and all other facets of the plan were developed in the continuum, where what you think of as past, present and future is a series of simultaneous happenings, where soul's evolutionary station is known by the amount of light they radiate, and matching them up according to their interests, innate capabilities, and necessary karmic experiencing can be easily arranged. Always pre-birth agreements are made with unconditional love and designed to benefit every soul participating in the shared lifetime, and so it was with the Council's plan, albeit the most unusual and far-reaching ever devised. Never before in this universe had an entire civilization entered into an agreement whereby the vast majority would undertake such a monumental challenge, completing in only one lifetime all third-density karmic lessons they needed to achieve balance and evolve spiritually and consciously into fourth density. This unique opportunity attracted trillions of eager souls, far more than could enter Earth's population, and those who were selected were apprised of every part of the plan. They knew that after birth they would not remember any of it, but inner guidance would keep them on track via soul-level messages to the consciousness, conscience, intuition, instinct, aspirations and inspirations, because this is true of every physical life. The stunning difference this time was, all participants knew that they would be helping to create in linear time a world that already exists in the continuum by virtue of Gaia's manifestation. And, all felt certain that they would masterfully perform their chosen roles. Nevertheless, in the Council's planning of a process unprecedented in speed and scope, they wisely took into account that some of the weaker souls might falter and welcome assistance in addition to the continuous in-beaming of light from distant civilizations, and the plan included several means to handle that contingency. Stronger souls who had shared lifetimes with weaker ones could take upon themselves a portion of those souls' heavy karma. Volunteers for those roles were in fourth or higher densities, and so were the energy healers, psychic intermediaries and receivers of telepathic communication, who would help in their respective ways. A multitude of souls was needed to become way-showers and standard-bearers. Some would intuitively know the truth of information transmitted by messengers in the light and share it with all who were receptive. Others would become active in various reform efforts or prepare for professions where they could influence positive changes. And some of the many souls who would exemplify the power of positive thoughts and feelings and the joy of living in godly ways would fill other roles, too. Surely it is no surprise that you who have stayed steadfast in the light despite obstacles, disappointing setbacks, and perhaps scornful disrespect are among the volunteers selected to fill one or more of those roles that have helped so many along their ascension pathway. Vital to the plan were souls who would create the harsh circumstances the masses needed, and when that was completed, join the light forces. Only the most highly evolved beings could be entrusted with those missions, and the Council selected the volunteers whose dependability in the most challenging areas of light service had been proven time and again. There was no reason whatsoever to anticipate that they would renege on the latter part of their agreement, but that is what happened. Those individuals had fallen under the spell of the darkness that engulfed the planet, and they refused to relinquish their power, control of the masses and fortunes gained illegally or immorally. No amount of urging at soul and conscious levels, pledges of assistance or warnings about self-judgment in lifetime reviews convinced them to honor their agreement. They are the top of the Illuminati, an alliance of disparate groups that own or have infiltrated every organization, institution and corporation that impacts life in your world, from governments to banking and commerce, religions to education and media, military, entertainment, legal and justice systems. The alliance, which is pyramidal with a handful of individuals at the peak and many, many minions at the bottom who have no idea that they are working in league with a malevolent force, also is known to you as the secret government, one world government, new world order, the cabal or the elitists. Although the Council's timeline for world situations to be greatly improved and the people's burdens eased, so they could see the light had arrived in your linear time, the Illuminati continued hiding truths and fomenting wars, destruction, disease, and impoverishment just as many generations of Dark Ones had done before them. That didn't affect Earth's ascension pace. She entered fourth density right on target as predestined, at the end of 2012, but relentless turmoil and hardships and ignorance of truths have kept most of her peoples within third density's limited conscious and spiritual awareness. The billions who are coping with one hardship or injustice piled atop others, or are barely surviving cannot imagine anything except the violence, misery, despair, and fear in their lives. Troops in combat believe what they have been told. It is your patriotic duty to fight for freedom, or it is your responsibility to avenge what was done to your ancestors. The large numbers employed in companies that produce the machinery of war may abhor war's death and destruction, but their foremost interest is their livelihood that supports their families. Thus, contrary to the Council's expectations of your society's advancement by 2007, thoughts of a peaceful world where everyone sharing equally Earth's abundance had but a feeble toehold in the collective consciousness. Our replying at this point to the numerous readers who have expressed interest in the political future of the United States may seem strange, but you shall see that it is purposeful. The two-sided questions are representative of the others. Will the November elections give Republicans control of Congress? And you predicted correctly that Barack Obama would be elected U.S. President in 2008. Will Hillary Clinton become that country's first female president in 2016? We won't know which candidates will be elected in November until that nation's voters decide. Since we often have said that the outcome of everything transpiring on Earth is known because it is fait accompli in the continuum, it is natural to wonder why we don't know who the winners will be. The election results won't affect planetary ascension one whit, and will have little impact on the collective consciousness, which comprises the energy put forth not only by humans, but also every other life form on the planet. Because the winners aren't significant in those contexts and there is no clarity in Earth's field of potential, there is no way for us to know who they will be. As for the 2016 presidential election, so much will take place during the next 2 years that even hazarding a guess about who will want to run for the office would be senseless and futile. We did not predict, we stated with certainty that Barack Obama would be elected, and this brings us back to why 2007 was a pivotal year. That is when thoughts about his being a potential U.S. presidential candidate entered the collective consciousness. The soul that embodied as Barack Obama was chosen to lead your world into Gaia's long-awaited era of peace, so it was essential that thoughts and feelings favoring him as president emerge, then keep increasing until the energy momentum was unstoppable. The voters' decision to elect him the following year was as predestined as surely as was Earth's ascension. Let us tell you why a personage of this soul was Gaia's and the Council's choice. After the soul originated in a fourth-density civilization, its lineage became universally respected as personages evolved into seventh density through multiple lifetimes of leading conflicted peoples into harmonious cooperation and assisting in civilization's advancement. Personages were instrumental in ending wars between civilizations as well as between warring factions within a population. Others were members of universal consultancy councils for upgrading civilization's educational, governing or justice systems, and many held topmost positions in highly evolved worlds. Barack Obama is innately endowed with that cumulative wisdom, knowledge and experience, and lifelong he has followed soul-level guidance to fulfill the peace mission he doesn't consciously know he accepted prior to birth. Had the souls who came in to create havoc for the masses, and indeed did, not reneged on their agreement to join the light forces afterwards, the timeline in the Golden Age Master Plan would have prevailed. By now Obama would have completed much of his presidential mission and your society would be well on the way to living peacefully. Instead, he inherited 2 wars and now is combating the terrorism that in no small part is their offspring. And, despite the light's immense headway in weakening the Illuminati's global network, they retained enough power within and beyond the Congress to doom most of Obama's visionary initiatives, and their efforts to keep the negativity of divisiveness alive and thriving in your society have been aided unwittingly by his political adversaries. The United States has no monopoly on this. Very few governments in your free world have been free of Illuminati influence, and most are beset with competitive members who produce stalemates instead of progress. By no means are we saying that everyone should have the very same idea about governance or any other issue. It is by assimilating the diversity of ideas, cultures and philosophies that a civilization is enriched and advances. What we are saying is that many souls who clamored to participate in significant roles to usher in the era of peace have not done what they felt certain they would, make choices in fulfillment of their chosen missions. This is both the cause and the effect of the 10-year delay. Beloved sisters and brothers, please don't translate delay into "it could take forever," as one reader wrote. There are myriad areas throughout your world where betterment is flourishing thanks to dedicated individuals, civic groups, or national and international organizations. Mainstream media are expanding reports of such stories and there is a plethora of heartening information in televised interviews, documentary films, conferences, workshops, books, magazines and the internet. Of course not all of you can actively take part in those kinds of forward-moving endeavors, most of you didn't sign up to do that anyway, but feeling grateful for these successes, excited about them and optimistic about Earth's future sends forth a profusion of light. Light, the same energy as love, is the key to manifesting fuller realization of the Council's Golden Age plan. Now then, just as there was no evidence of a dramatic event when Earth entered fourth density, nothing profound will be evident as 2017 nears its end and the planet enters the density's higher layers. There is no demarcation between those just as there is none between the densities themselves, which we number only to indicate advancement in location or spiritual and conscious awareness. Energy simply flows hither and yon in accordance with the vibrations emitted by its attachments that include all the thoughts and feelings constantly shooting up from Earth, and ascension is moving into areas where the vibrations are higher, or faster, than where you were previously. However, at times, celestial alignments produce energy surges that rapidly propel orbiting bodies into higher astral planes, and such will be the case the latter part of your year 2017, which coincides with the decade of delay reaching its end. During the interim, Earth will be traveling through increasingly high vibrations that will birth new changes and add impetus to all underway. Our beloved Earth family, if we knew when the major changes you asked about will come to pass, we would rejoice in telling you. Our last message explained why we don't know. Even God doesn't know. Let me speak for myself for a moment to give you a little illustration about foreknowledge of free will choices. Several years ago, when 2 men were courting my sister, my mother asked God which she would choose, or neither. God said, "I don't know." My mother asked how he could not know since she is a part of him, and God replied, "Yes, and as soon as she knows, so will I." Lighted souls throughout the universe are with you in spirit, cheering you ever onward, and some are right there beside you on your ascension pathway. Channeled by Suzanne Ward. www.matthewbooks.com